My name is Alma, and I'm 56 years old. For 18 years, I taught third grade at Oak Ridge Elementary in Portland, Oregon, while raising my son Ethan alongside my husband Jack. Our life seemed completely normal until that day when Jack was coming home from a business trip. The moment the doorbell rang, Ethan grabbed my arm so tightly it left marks. His face was pale with terror as he whispered, "Mom, don't let Dad in. We have to run right now." I didn't understand, but something in his eyes made me trust him. As he pulled me through the back door and we jumped into my car, I had no idea that what happened next would change our lives forever. Before I continue with this unbelievable story, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you've ever had that moment when your instincts saved you from danger. Jack and I met at a teachers' conference in Seattle 18 years ago. He was presenting about integrating technology in classrooms, and I was immediately drawn to his enthusiasm and intelligence. At 38, I had almost given up on finding someone, but Jack changed everything. After a whirlwind romance, we married within 6 months and settled in a modest two-story home in suburban Portland. Our house wasn't fancy, but it was perfect for us. A comfortable living room with large windows overlooking a maple tree in the front yard, a kitchen where I loved to bake on weekends, 3 bedrooms upstairs with the smallest converted into Jack's home office. The backyard was spacious enough for the vegetable garden I tended each summer and for Ethan to play as he grew. Ethan came along a few years after we married, a bright-eyed, curious boy who showed an early aptitude for science and mathematics. He was always sensitive, intuitive about people's emotions in a way that sometimes surprised us. By 14, he had grown into a thoughtful teenager who preferred gaming and reading over sports, though he had a small, loyal circle of friends. Jack worked as an IT consultant specializing in security systems for medium-sized businesses. His expertise was in demand, which meant frequent business trips usually lasting 2 or 3 days every few weeks. While I missed him during these absences, we had settled into a comfortable rhythm. I had my teaching, my book club, my sister Diane in California, whom I called weekly, and of course Ethan. But over the past 6 months, I had noticed subtle changes in Jack. He became more secretive, taking phone calls in the garage or backyard where I couldn't overhear. His laptop, previously often left open on the kitchen table, was now password protected. He started working late into the night, the blue glow of his computer screen visible under the office door when I went to bed. When I casually asked about these changes, Jack dismissed my concerns. "Just a sensitive project with a new client," he'd say, or, "You know how competitive this industry is getting." I tried to believe him, though. A small voice in my head whispered that something wasn't right. But after nearly 2 decades together, I trusted Jack. Perhaps I was just being paranoid. The business trip to Seattle was supposed to be routine. Jack mentioned a conference about emerging technologies, something he attended regularly. But this trip was different from the start. Instead of the usual 2 or 3 days, Jack planned to be gone for 5. His explanations about the extended schedule were vague, mentioning additional meetings and potential new clients. During this trip, Jack's communications were sparse. A brief text in the morning, another at night. No details about his day, no funny anecdotes about other conference attendees as he usually shared. When I called, the conversations were short, and I often heard muffled voices or strange mechanical sounds in the background. Even more concerning was Ethan's behavior during his father's absence. My usually easygoing son became anxious, checking his phone constantly. Twice, I found him in the middle of the night standing by the windows, peering out as if expecting someone. When I asked what he was doing, he mumbled something about hearing a noise. The night before Jack was due to return, I received a strange call from him. The connection was poor, and his voice sounded different, somehow more monotone than usual. "We'll be arriving tomorrow around noon," he said. "We?" I questioned. "Are you bringing someone home with you?" There was a pause then. "Just colleagues, for a brief meeting." Before I could ask more questions, the call cut off. When I tried calling back, it went straight to voicemail. That same evening, as I was preparing dinner, Ethan approached me with an unusual question. "Mom, has Dad ever scared you?" The knife I was using to chop onions paused midair. "What do you mean, honey?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably, not meeting my eyes. "Just wondering. Sometimes he seems different lately." "Different how?" I asked, setting down the knife and giving him my full attention. But Ethan shrugged and stepped back. "Never mind. It's probably nothing." I tried to get him to elaborate, but he changed the subject, asking about dinner and homework. Still, I noticed that he stayed close to me all evening, something he hadn't done since he was much younger. His behavior left me unsettled, a feeling that grew as we prepared for Jack's return the next day. The morning Jack was due home started like any other. I woke early, made coffee, and began planning a welcome home dinner with Jack's favorite pot roast. When Ethan came downstairs, he was already dressed, but announced he wasn't feeling well enough for school. "I think I might have a stomach bug," he said, though his forehead wasn't warm when I checked. I was suspicious, but agreed he could stay home. As a teacher, I rarely allowed Ethan to miss school without good reason, but something about his demeanor concerned me. He seemed on edge, constantly checking his phone and jumping at small noises. Around 10 o'clock, I received a text from Jack. "Landing now. Home in about an hour." I showed Ethan the message, thinking it might ease whatever was bothering him. Instead, his face paled and he became even more agitated, pacing between the living room and kitchen, repeatedly looking out the windows. "Ethan, what's going on?" I finally demanded. "You're acting like you're expecting something bad to happen." "Nothing," he mumbled, but his eyes didn't meet mine. "Just not feeling great." I returned to the kitchen to check on the pot roast, concerned but unsure what to do. Ethan had always been sensitive, but this level of anxiety seemed extreme. As I was setting the table, wondering if I should call a neighbor who was a child psychologist, the doorbell rang. It was only 11 earlier than Jack had indicated. Ethan was upstairs, but at the sound of the bell, he came flying down the stairs. Before I could reach the door, he grabbed my arm with surprising strength, his face a mask of terror. "Mom, don't let Dad in." "We have to run right now," he whispered urgently. I stared at him in shock. "Ethan, what are you talking about? That's your father at the door." The doorbell rang again, followed by a knock. "Alma, Ethan, it's me," Jack's voice called. Ethan's grip tightened on my arm. "Please, Mom, trust me. That's not really Dad anymore." His voice broke. "I can prove it, but we need to go now." He pulled out his phone with trembling hands and showed me something on the screen. I only caught a glimpse, but what I saw made my blood run cold. Text messages from Jack's phone to unknown numbers discussing the conversion and bringing in his family today. There were references to preparation and containment if resistance occurs. The doorbell rang a third time, more insistent. "Alma, is everything okay?" Jack called, his voice changing subtly, an edge creeping in that I'd never heard before. I looked at my son's terrified face, then at the door. Every maternal instinct told me to trust Ethan, even if what he was suggesting seemed impossible. "Okay," I whispered. "Back door." We moved quietly through the kitchen to the rear of the house. I grabbed my purse with my wallet and phone as we passed through. Ethan already had his backpack slung over one shoulder. We slipped out the back door just as we heard the sound of a key in the front lock. My hands trembled as I started the car. Just as the engine turned over, I saw movement at the garden gate. Jack appeared, but he wasn't alone. A tall man in a dark suit walked beside him. As Jack spotted us in the car, his expression changed from friendly concern to something cold and calculating that I didn't recognize. "Alma, stop," he called, striding quickly toward the car. I reversed down the driveway and onto the street, my heart hammering against my ribs. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jack running after us, his face contorted in a way I'd never seen before. "Drive, Mom," Ethan urged, his voice cracking. "Please, just drive." As we sped away, Ethan began to cry, quiet sobs that shook his shoulders. "That's not really Dad anymore, Mom," he repeated. "Something happened to him. They did something to him." I drove without direction, at first my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Eventually, I pulled into a busy shopping center parking lot and chose a coffee shop with large windows and plenty of customers. We needed to talk somewhere public. We sat at a table near the center of the cafe, surrounded by morning coffee drinkers. Ethan's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. "I need to show you everything," he said, his voice low. "I should have told you sooner, but I wasn't sure at first, and then I was scared you wouldn't believe me." He opened his text message app and showed me screenshots he had taken of conversations from Jack's phone. My husband's familiar number was at the top of the exchanges, but the content was like nothing I'd ever expect from Jack. "How did you get these?" I asked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Ethan explained that it started 3 months ago when he had borrowed Jack's phone to download a game and a strange message popped up. Curious and concerned, he began monitoring his father's communications whenever possible, taking screenshots as evidence. Dad's been talking to these people for months, Ethan said. It started out looking like normal work stuff, but then it changed. They call themselves Evolutionary Ascendance. They believe in using technology to enhance humans. The messages revealed a gradual process of Jack being pulled into what appeared to be a cult-like organization. What had begun as discussions about cutting-edge technology had evolved into something much darker, with references to necessary sacrifices and leaving old limitations behind. "Look at this one," Ethan said, pointing to a message dated 2 weeks ago. "Family integration must be handled carefully. Some subjects experience resistance to separation from biological attachments. Containment protocols may be necessary." I felt sick as I scrolled through more messages. There were references to substantial payments which explained the large withdrawals from our savings account that Jack had attributed to investment opportunities. Ethan had done more than just collect messages. He showed me news articles he'd found online about the group, though they operated under different names in different regions. Former members described personality changes, estrangement from families, and in some cases, unexplained medical procedures. Some reported that after leaving, they had no memory of certain periods during their involvement. "I didn't want to believe it either," Ethan said, seeing my shocked expression. "But remember when Dad came back from Phoenix last month, how he was so sick the first day home and then suddenly fine the next day, but different somehow?" I did remember. Jack had been feverish and disoriented upon his return, insisting it was just travel exhaustion. The next morning, he seemed completely recovered but strangely detached, spending hours in his office and speaking mechanically when addressed. Then I recalled finding strange items in Jack's luggage while unpacking for him, small alcohol wipes, Band-Aids, and what looked like blister packaging for medication, though I couldn't identify it. When I asked, he quickly took them from me, saying they were just first aid supplies for his trips. "We need to call the police," I said finally. We found the nearest police station and spoke with an Officer Mills. He took our statement and examined the screenshots Ethan showed him, but I could tell he was skeptical. From an outside perspective, it sounded fantastical, a respected IT professional secretly involved with a cult-like technology group planning to convert his family. "We'll look into this, Mrs. Winters," Officer Mills said carefully. "But without evidence of an actual crime, there's not much we can do right now." As we left the station, my phone chimed with a text from Jack. "You can't run from evolution. We're your family now." I showed it to Ethan, whose face went pale again. "They know we went to the police," he whispered. "They must be tracking our phones." We switched off our phones immediately and bought a cheap prepaid phone with cash from a convenience store. Using the last of my cash, we checked into a budget hotel on the outskirts of town, not using our credit cards. In the hotel room, I was struck by how prepared Ethan seemed for this crisis. From his backpack, he produced a small envelope containing almost $800 in cash and a basic burner phone he had purchased weeks earlier. "I've been saving my allowance and birthday money," he explained, "and selling some of my gaming stuff online. I knew we might need to leave quickly." I hugged my son, overwhelmed by his foresight and the terrible burden he had been carrying alone. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked gently. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, and then I was afraid of what Dad might do if he knew I knew. He's not himself anymore, Mom." Using the burner phone, I called my sister Diane in Sacramento. At first, she thought I was joking or having some kind of breakdown. "Alma, do you hear what you're saying?" she asked. "Jack is involved in a cult that's trying to convert you with technology. This doesn't make any sense." "I know how it sounds," I replied, my voice cracking. "But Ethan has evidence. We're scared, Diane. We need somewhere to go." After a long pause, Diane said, "Come here. You and Ethan can stay with me while we figure this out." We planned to drive to California the next day. That night in the hotel, neither of us slept well. Ethan kept getting up to check the door and windows while I lay awake trying to comprehend how my life had shattered so completely in a single day. Morning brought a new shock. When I tried to withdraw money from an ATM, my card was declined. Checking our accounts online from the hotel's computer, I discovered all our accounts had been emptied and my credit cards were frozen. "He's cut off our money," I told Ethan, a new wave of panic rising. Ethan looked out the window and suddenly pulled me away from view. "There's a black van in the parking lot. 2 men are talking to the desk clerk and showing them something." We grabbed our few belongings and slipped out through a service exit, avoiding the main lobby. Our car might be too easily recognized, so we abandoned it and walked to a bus station several blocks away. Using Ethan's emergency cash, we bought tickets to a town about 100 miles south, the first step toward California. On the bus, I constantly checked for followers, my nerves frayed to breaking point. Beside me, Ethan finally broke down, sobbing quietly. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "If I'd told you sooner, maybe we could have helped Dad before it got this bad. Now we've lost everything." I held my son close, trying to be strong for him, while battling my own terror. "You did the right thing, Ethan. You saved us. And we're going to find a way to help Dad, too." We arrived in the small town of Roseburg by evening and found a motel that accepted cash without asking too many questions. Using our burner phone, I contacted Diane again, and she agreed to drive north the next day to meet us halfway. That evening, while eating vending machine snacks in our motel room, we turned on the local news. What we saw made my heart sink. There was Jack looking composed and concerned, standing outside our home with police officers. "I'm very worried about my wife and son," he was saying, his voice breaking with what looked like genuine emotion. "Alma has been under a lot of stress lately, and I'm concerned she may be experiencing some mental health issues. Ethan is very impressionable, and I'm afraid she's frightened him with her delusions. If anyone has seen them, please contact the police. We just want them home safe." Ethan and I stared at each other in horror. "They're making us look like the crazy ones," Ethan whispered. "No one's going to believe us now," I realized. "We need proof." The next morning, Diane called to say she had reached Eugene and would meet us at a diner just off the highway. We took a local bus to the meeting point, constantly looking over our shoulders. When Diane's familiar blue sedan pulled into the parking lot, I nearly collapsed with relief. My younger sister rushed to embrace us, her face lined with worry. "My God, Alma, you look terrible," she said, then turned to Ethan. "Both of you do." In Diane's car heading south, we explained everything in detail. Though still skeptical, Diane was shaken by our fear and the text messages Ethan had saved. "Even if this is all some huge misunderstanding," she said, "you can stay with me until it's sorted out." But as we drove, I realized that simply hiding wouldn't solve our problem. Without evidence, we were just a possibly unstable woman and her impressionable son fleeing from a concerned husband. Jack, or whoever was controlling him now, had resources and connections we couldn't match. "We need proof," I said, "something more than text messages that could be dismissed as fake." Using Diane's laptop and the car's Wi-Fi hotspot, I accessed our home security camera system. Most of the recent footage had been deleted, but I found one saved clip from 2 weeks ago that Ethan must have archived. It showed Jack in his office, rolling up his sleeve and injecting something into his arm, then making a phone call where he reported, "The latest dose has been administered. Cognitive alignment is proceeding as expected." "That's not normal business trip medication," Diane muttered, glancing at the screen while driving. Then Ethan remembered something crucial. "Dad keeps a work journal. He's been writing in it every night. It's hidden behind my science fair project in the garage storage area. He doesn't know I know about it." The journal could contain the concrete evidence we needed, but retrieving it meant returning to the house, which now felt like enemy territory. After much discussion, we formulated a plan. Diane would call Jack, pretending she was trying to reach me, and was concerned by the news reports. While Jack was distracted on the phone, Ethan and I would slip into the house during daylight hours when neighbors would be around. The next day, we parked on a street near our home and watched the house from a distance. There was unusual activity with different people coming and going throughout the morning. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patel, was walking her dog nearby, and I risked approaching her. "Alma," she exclaimed. "Are you all right? Jack has been telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown." I gave her a simplified version of events, saying Jack had been acting strangely and I was concerned for our safety. Mrs. Patel looked troubled. "I wondered about those people coming to your house," she said. "They don't look like Jack's usual colleagues. much more serious, and they come at odd hours. This confirmation from an outside observer strengthened my resolve. At noon, Diane called Jack as planned. Through binoculars, we watched him answer his phone in the living room, then walk out to his car and drive away after a few minutes of conversation. "He's going to meet me at a coffee shop," Diane reported when she called us back. "He thinks I might know where you are. You have maybe 30 minutes. Heart pounding, Ethan and I approached our home from the back, using my key to enter through the rarely used side door. Inside, the house looked strangely different. New locks were being installed on interior doors. Unfamiliar electronic equipment sat on the dining room table. In the living room, a hospital-style bed had been set up. "They were getting ready for us," Ethan whispered. We moved quickly to the garage. Ethan located his old science project, a solar system model, and reached behind it to pull out a leather-bound journal. As he did, I noticed a hard drive taped to the back of a shelf. "That's Dad's backup drive," Ethan said. "He doesn't know I know about that either." We grabbed both items and were about to leave when we heard a vehicle pulling into the driveway. Through the garage window, we saw a black van similar to the one from the hotel parking lot. We slipped out the back door just as we heard the front door opening. Keeping to the neighbors' yards and cutting through a small patch of woods behind the houses, we made it back to Diane's car without being spotted. We drove straight to a public library where we could examine our findings safely. Jack's journal contained exactly what we needed: detailed accounts of his gradual indoctrination into the Evolutionary Ascendance group. The earliest entries described interesting technological discussions that gradually shifted to philosophical debates about transcending human limitations. Later entries became more disturbing, documenting enhancement procedures involving injections and eventually something called a neural bridge implant. Jack wrote about experiencing periods of dual consciousness, describing it as the old self observing the new, evolved self taking control. Most chilling were the recent entries outlining plans for family integration, with clinical notes about how to handle any resistance from me or Ethan. There were names of other members' locations of meeting facilities and details about the organization's structure. The hard drive contained recorded conversations between Jack and various Evolutionary Ascendance leaders, providing irrefutable evidence of the group's activities and intentions. "We need professional help," Diane said after reviewing the materials. "This is way beyond something the local police can handle." Through online research, we found Sandra Wilson, a journalist who had previously reported on cult activities and technological ethics. We contacted her through a secure email service Ethan set up at the library, and she agreed to meet us that evening. Sandra took one look at our evidence and immediately contacted an FBI agent she knew who specialized in cult organizations. Agent Lawson met us the following day in a secure location arranged by Sandra. Agent Lawson, a serious woman with kind eyes, reviewed everything methodically. "We've been monitoring this group for some time," she revealed. "They call themselves Evolutionary Ascendance, but they operate under different names in different regions. They've been targeting technology professionals with access to sensitive information or systems." She explained that the organization combined traditional cult indoctrination tactics with experimental technology, including mind-altering drugs and crude neural implants designed to influence behavior and thought patterns. "Your husband is likely not fully in control of his actions," Agent Lawson told me gently. "We've encountered other cases where subjects have no memory of their actions while under the influence of these methods. There had been other families who escaped," she said, "but Jack's journal and recordings were the most comprehensive evidence they had yet obtained about the inner workings of the organization." "We can offer you protection while we proceed with our investigation," Agent Lawson said. "The information you've provided may be crucial in stopping these people." We were moved to a safe house outside of Portland where we lived in a strange limbo for several weeks. FBI agents came and went asking questions and updating us on the investigation. Ethan was provided with online schooling, and I was given regular updates on Jack's activities, which were now being monitored. The knowledge that Jack might not be responsible for his actions brought a complicated mix of emotions. I vacillated between fear, anger, and hope that the man I had loved for 18 years could somehow be restored to us. One evening, Agent Lawson arrived with a proposal. "We're planning an operation to infiltrate the organization, and we believe we can extract your husband in the process," she explained. but it would be helpful to have your assistance. The plan involved a controlled reunion with me reaching out to Jack, claiming I wanted to understand more about his new path. I would wear recording equipment and be surrounded by undercover agents. No way, Ethan protested when he heard the plan. It's too dangerous. We just got away from him. I understood his fear, but I also knew this might be our only chance to help Jack. I need to try, I told my son. If there's any chance of getting your real father back, don't we have to take it? After much discussion, Ethan reluctantly agreed, making me promise multiple times that I would be safe. I can't lose both parents, he said, his voice breaking. You won't, I promised, holding him close. I'm going to bring your dad back. The operation was set for a small cafe in downtown Portland. I sat at an outdoor table, my hands trembling slightly around my coffee cup despite the spring sunshine. Undercover FBI agents were positioned nearby, and I wore a small recording device disguised as a brooch. When Jack appeared, my heart clenched. He looked thinner with dark circles under his eyes, but his posture was strangely rigid, his movements too precise. His eyes, once warm and crinkled at the corners when he smiled, now held a cold, intense stare. Alma, he said, sitting across from me, I'm glad you finally reached out. I've been concerned about you and Ethan. We've been concerned about you too, Jack, I replied carefully. You've changed. A strange smile crossed his face. I've evolved, Alma, and you and Ethan can too. The procedures are quite tolerable and the benefits are beyond anything you can imagine. For the next 20 minutes, Jack spoke about the Evolutionary Ascendance philosophy, describing a vision of humanity freed from emotional weaknesses and optimized through technological integration. His voice had an unnatural cadence, as if reciting memorized text, occasionally shifting to a more natural tone before the mechanical quality returned. Where is Ethan? He asked suddenly. He should be here too. He's safe, I said. He's waiting to see if you're still the father he remembers. Something flickered in Jack's eyes, then a momentary confusion that gave me hope. Of course I'm his father, he said, but his voice faltered slightly. As planned, I asked specific questions about his conversion process, drawing out details about the procedures and drugs that the FBI needed to confirm. Jack answered readily, even proudly, unaware of the recording. When I asked about the neural bridge implant, mentioned in his journal, Jack's hand unconsciously moved to the back of his neck. The bridge allows for optimal cognitive alignment, he explained. The discomfort is temporary, and the clarity it brings is worth any price. As our conversation continued, FBI agents gradually moved into position around us. When I gave the agreed-upon signal mentioning Ethan's science project, they converged on our table. Jack's reaction was not what any of us expected. Rather than resistance, his face crumpled in confusion. He looked at me, then at the agents surrounding him, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. Alma, he said, his voice suddenly his own again filled with confusion and fear. What's happening to me? Then he collapsed his body, convulsing briefly before he went still. Medical personnel hidden nearby rushed in, and Jack was quickly transported to a secure medical facility. Tests revealed a small device implanted at the base of his skull, near the brainstem. According to the doctors, it was releasing a combination of drugs that altered brain chemistry and made him susceptible to programming. As the device was carefully removed and the drugs cleared from his system, Jack began to return to himself, though the process was neither quick nor easy. Meanwhile, based on information from Jack's journal and our recordings, the FBI raided several Evolutionary Ascendance facilities simultaneously. They found other victims in various stages of conversion and seized extensive records documenting the organization's activities. Jack's recovery was painful to witness. As his true self reemerged, he was horrified by what had been done to him and what he had almost done to us. He had fragmented memories of his time under the group's influence, describing it as watching himself from a distance, unable to stop his own actions. I kept trying to fight it, he told me during one hospital visit, tears streaming down his face. Sometimes I could break through for a moment, but then the fog would come back and I'd be trapped again, watching myself say and do things I didn't want to do. The first meeting between Jack and Ethan was difficult. Our son was understandably wary, standing at the door of the hospital room, unwilling to approach the bed where his father lay. "It's okay if you don't trust me yet," Jack said gently. "I wouldn't either. But I want you to know that I'm so proud of you, Ethan. You saved your mom. You saved me. You were braver and smarter than all of us." Slowly, over weeks of family therapy sessions, we began to rebuild our trust. Jack's testimony proved invaluable in prosecuting the leaders of Evolutionary Ascendance, though many members of the organization remained at large. We couldn't return to our old house with its painful memories and possible security risks. Instead, we used the insurance money from our homeowner's policy to purchase a small house in a different suburb. Jack found a new job working remotely for a cybersecurity firm that specifically protected against the kind of attacks he had experienced. 6 months after that terrifying day when Ethan warned me not to let his father in, we were beginning to heal. Jack was fully free of the implant's influence, but still dealing with the trauma of his experience and the guilt over what he had almost done to his family. He attended therapy twice weekly and had become an advocate for technology ethics, speaking at conferences about the dangers of unchecked technological experimentation. Ethan showed remarkable resilience, though he still checked the locks on our doors each night and kept a go-bag packed in his closet. His experience had given him a maturity beyond his years, but with time, he was beginning to act like a normal teenager again, rejoining his gaming groups and even trying out for the school science team. As for me, I returned to teaching, though, at a different school. I found comfort in the routine and in helping children while remaining vigilantly watchful of my family's safety. The experience had changed me profoundly, teaching me to trust my instincts and, more importantly, to listen when my child tried to tell me something was wrong. Looking back, I'm grateful every day that I trusted Ethan's warning and fled with him that morning. Had we stayed, we might both have been subjected to the same procedures that nearly stole Jack's identity and free will. Sometimes the greatest danger comes from those we love most, but love is also what saves us in the end. Jack's love for us helped him fight the programming. My love for Ethan made me trust him when everything else seemed impossible, and Ethan's love for both of us gave him the courage to act when he discovered the truth. Have any of you ever had a moment when trusting your instincts or listening to your child saved you from danger? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please, like this video if you believe in the power of family bonds to overcome even the most extraordinary challenges, and subscribe to our channel for more true stories of survival and healing. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded to trust their inner voice when something doesn't feel right. Thank you for listening to our story. And remember, sometimes the quiet warning from someone who loves you might be the most important message you'll ever receive.